Imagine a capital city so gripped by protests that the army is deployed and curfews are enforced.
It's happening right now in Nepal.
And it all boils down to one huge question.
Should this nation revert to a Hindu monarchy?
You, our listeners, sent us a ton of reports on this unfolding situation in Nepal.
From straight-up news to some really in-depth expert analysis.
And today we're going to try to unpack it all.
We'll figure out what's happening.
Why it matters.
And what it means for Nepal's future.
So we've got news reports detailing the events as they unfolded.
Articles that give us some much-needed background and context.
And expert opinions weighing in on the feasibility of this whole thing.
Yeah, why are people even pushing for this in the first place?
This isn't just some local political squabble.
This goes way deeper.
It gets to the heart of identity governance.
And the long-term stability of a nation.
Understanding this situation gives you a glimpse into what happens when a country goes through such a massive political shift.
Absolutely. So let's jump right in.
Okay, these protests turned deadly. So paint us a picture what happened.
So March 28th, Kathmandu, the Tinkuni area specifically, that's where these pro-monarchy demonstrators came out in force.
And what were they demanding?
Essentially a return to the past.
Okay.
They wanted to reinstate the former King Gyanendra Shah.
The last monarch before Nepal became a republic.
Exactly.
Right.
And they also wanted to make Hinduism the official state religion.
So a Hindu Rashtra.
That's their term for it, yeah.
Okay, so this wasn't just a peaceful demonstration though, was it?
Unfortunately, no, it escalated pretty quickly.
What happened?
So things were peaceful at first,
Okay.
but then protesters tried to push past police barricades.
Which were there to keep things under control.
Right, and that's when things got out of hand.
We heard reports of tear gas.
Oh yeah.
Water cannons.
Yep.
Even rubber bullets.
The authorities had to use whatever they could to disperse the crowd.
It sounds pretty chaotic.
There were reports of vandalism.
Like what?
Setting vehicles on fire, even buildings. And tragically, 2 people lost their lives.
A protester and a journalist.
Right. He was there covering the events.
That's awful.
And over 30 people got injured.
Both protesters and security personnel.
Yeah, it was a bad situation all around.
So what happened after the protests?
Well, they imposed a curfew in several areas of Kathmandu.
To restore order.
Exactly. It's been lifted since then.
Okay.
But over 100 people were arrested.
Including some big names?
Yeah, like leaders from the Rashtriya Prajatantra Party.
The RPP.
They're the ones who are openly pro-monarchy.
So this clearly isn't just a random outburst?
No, there's a deeper historical context here.
Nepal hasn't been a republic for that long.
Not really. It became a federal democratic republic in 2008.
But it sounds like it's been rocky.
It has. There's been a lot of political instability.
And what about the economy?
Well, there's a lot of dissatisfaction with how the country's been run.
Okay.
Corruption's a big problem.
Oh, what else?
The economy's struggling. People are dealing with unemployment, rising living costs.
It sounds pretty bleak.
Yeah, a lot of people are feeling disillusioned.
So they're looking back at the monarchy and thinking things were better then.
It's understandable in a way. When things are tough, people long for what feels like a simpler time.
Even if it's idealized?
Exactly.
And the former King Gyanendra Shah?
He's been stirring things up.
How so?
He's been making public appeals, urging his supporters to band together.
And it's resonating with some people.
Oh yeah, especially those who feel abandoned by the current political leaders.
The ones who are struggling to make ends meet.
Right, they're the ones who are most susceptible to this kind of message.
It's interesting, we also saw reports of counter-protests.
Yeah, not everyone's on board with this whole monarchy thing.
So there's a clear divide within Nepal.
Absolutely. The Socialist Front, they organized anti-monarchy protests.
They want to keep the republic.
That's their main goal.
Good thing those protests remain peaceful.
Absolutely.
But it just goes to show you how deeply divided the country is.
Yeah, it's a fundamental disagreement about the future of Nepal.
So after these pro-monarchy protests turned violent, how did the government respond?
Well, they tightened security in Kathmandu right away.
Okay.
Over 100 arrests were made.
Including those RPP leaders we talked about.
Right.
And the government's official stance.
They're saying they're committed to maintaining order.
While also respecting the right to peaceful assembly.
It's a delicate balance.
It is.
They're also reviewing their strategies.
To try and prevent further violence.
Yeah, they need to find a way to address both sides of this issue.
The pro-monarchy folks and the anti-monarchy folks.
Exactly.
So security's on high alert.
And there have been reports of officials trying to get community leaders talking.
To de-escalate things.
Anyway.
Okay, so let's talk about this demand for the monarchy's restoration.
All right.
Some sources are saying it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, they're calling it highly improbable.
What's their reasoning?
Well, they point to the 2006 People's Movement,
Which led to the end of the monarchy.
right, and then the formal abolition in 2008.
So they're saying that ship has sailed.
Pretty much.
It's not just about past events, though, right?
No, public opinion matters, too.
And has that changed?
It seems like a lot of the trust in the monarchy eroded.
Why is that?
Well, there were perceptions of authoritarianism.
And then King Jayanendra's power grab in 2005.
That didn't go over well.
Not to mention the 2015 constitution.
Right. It formally established Nepal as a federal democratic republic.
So legally speaking, how could they even reinstate the monarchy?
It would take a constitutional amendment.
And that's not easy.
Not at all. You'd need a two-thirds majority vote in parliament.
Think they can get that?
Highly unlikely.
Why not?
Well, the major political parties.
Like the Nepali Congress, the CPN-UML, the Maui Center.
Exactly. They're all focused on the current republic.
They fought to get rid of the monarchy.
So they're not going to just bring it back.
And that two-thirds majority?
It's a huge hurdle.
What about the international community?
They'd likely push back too. Well, a lot of global powers and international organizations.
They supported Nepal's transition to a republic.
Right. They see it as a step towards stability and democracy.
So reversing that.
Could have some serious consequences.
Okay, so democracy brought some changes to Nepal, right?
Definitely, it led to a decentralization of power.
Okay.
So local governments have more say.
And there's more representation for different ethnic groups?
Yeah, bringing back the monarchy.
It would reverse all that?
It would centralize power again.
So what about the former royal family?
Do they have any pull?
Do they?
Most sources say no.
Really?
They don't seem to have the influence they once did.
Jayanendra specifically.
Yeah, his legacy's kind of tarnished.
From those autocratic actions we mentioned earlier.
It's hard to come back from that.
One report even suggested these protests might be driven by personal vendettas.
And some of the protesters might not even fully grasp the issues at hand.
Like the complexities of monarchy versus democracy.
Yeah, it's a messy situation.
So these protests have had some real-world consequences.
Absolutely.
Especially for the former king.
Financially and potentially politically.
How so?
Well, the Kathmandu metropolitan city, they fined him.
For what?
For the damage caused during the protests.
Okay.
Public property, the environment, it all adds up.
How much was the fine?
793,000 Nepali rupees.
That's not small change.
Nope. They sent him a formal letter.
Making it clear that he's being held accountable.
Right. They're saying these protests were a direct result of his calls for unity.
And there's that connection with the protest organizer, Durga Prasad,
He met with Gyanendra the day before the protests.
allegedly receiving instructions.
That's what the reports are saying.
And some reports even say his passport was taken.
And his security detail was reduced.
Wow.
Although we haven't had official confirmation on that yet.
So the ruling Nepali Congress, what are they saying?
They're condemning the violence.
Saying it was a deliberate attempt to impose totalitarian rule.
And they're putting the blame squarely on the former king.
What about the business community?
They're not happy either.
How come?
Well, they're demanding compensation for damages.
They're also calling for legal action against those who instigated the violence.
Makes sense their businesses were disrupted.
And it's not just them, right?
No civil society leaders have spoken out too.
What's their take?
They're criticizing Gyanendra for getting involved politically.
They're saying it undermines the progress Nepal's made.
Yeah, and they're pointing to his statement on Democracy Day back in February.
Where he talked about protecting the country and fostering national unity.
Right after that, the pro-monarchy rallies started popping up.
Okay, so let's sum this all up.
Right.
What are the key things our listeners should take away from this?
So we've seen violent pro-monarchy protests in Nepal.
They want a Hindu Rashtra and they want the former king back.
But experts say a restoration of the monarchy is extremely unlikely.
There are too many obstacles.
Constitutional barriers, lack of political support, potential international backlash.
These protests reveal a deep division in Nepal.
Between those who long for the past.
And those who are trying to build a new democratic future.
It's a tension we see in a lot of countries.
As they navigate these transitions from old systems to new ones.
Exactly.
So Nepal's grappling with some big questions right now.
Historical grievances, current political frustrations, competing visions for the future.
And it all comes down to this desire for stability.
And a sense of national identity.
So what happens next in Nepal?
That's the million-dollar question.
How do they bridge these fundamental disagreements?
What are the long-term effects of this polarization?
Not just for Nepal, but for other countries facing similar challenges.
It's a global issue.
So what resonated with you the most about this deep dive?
What other angles would you like to explore?
Let us know in the comments.
Your thoughts help shape our future episodes.
And if you found this insightful,
You want to stay informed about complex global issues?
hit that subscribe button,
We break down the information so you don't have to.
bringing you clarity and context.
Don't miss out on future deep dives
Subscribe now and join our community.
of informed learners.
See you next time.
Take care.